The great hall of the Galactic Council fell silent when the message arrived. Hundreds of alien beings from across known space stopped their talking. They all stared at the main screen where a broken transmission played over and over. The face on the screen belonged to a Kethmori warrior. His people were known across the galaxy as fierce fighters who conquered worlds and took whatever they wanted. But this warrior looked different. His proud shoulders were bent. His eyes showed fear. His voice shook as he spoke. "This is Commander Zex High of the Kethmori Empire." The message began. "Our homeworld is dying. We have tried everything. Our cities are falling. Our people are dying. The storms never stop. The seas burn with poison. We cannot fix this alone." The council members looked at each other with surprise. The Kethmori never asked for help. They took what they needed by force. They had laughed when other worlds begged for aid during disasters. They had stripped entire planets of resources and left the people to suffer. The message continued. "We know we have been cruel. We know we have hurt others. But please, we beg you, help us save our children. Help us save what is left of our world. We will do anything. We will pay any price." Ambassador Velthos of the Centauri Federation spoke first. "This must be a trick. The Kethmori do not beg. They command or they fight." "I have seen the reports," said Counselor Dax 1 from the Andromedan League. "Their homeworld really is in crisis. The environmental damage is beyond anything we have seen before. Their own actions caused this. Years of pollution and strip mining have made their planet unstable." The transmission showed images of the Kethmori homeworld. Massive storms covered entire continents. Lightning struck the ground every few seconds. The seas were red and orange with toxic algae. Cities that once held millions now lay in ruins. Only small groups of survivors hid in underground shelters. "How many are left?" asked Ambassador Velthos. "Intelligence reports say maybe 10 million out of 15 billion, Dax 1 replied. "The death toll climbs every day." The council erupted in discussion. Some members said the Kethmori deserved their fate. Others argued that letting an entire species die was wrong, even if they had been enemies. The debate went on for hours. Then Counselor Rex Pala from the Outer Rim territories noticed something strange. The transmission log shows this message was sent to many places. Most went to major powers like us, but there is one odd entry. They also sent it to a small world in the Milky Way, a primitive planet called Earth. This caused more discussion. Earth was barely known to most council members. The humans there had only recently developed space travel. They had no great military. Their technology was simple compared to other species. "Why would they send a message there?" asked Velthos. Dax 1 pulled up files on Earth. "The Kethmori have had contact with Earth before. They used human workers in some of their mining operations. The humans were cheap labor. The Kethmori treated them badly." "That makes it even stranger," said Rex Pala. "Why ask for help from people you have mistreated?" An aide handed Dax 1 a datapad. His expression changed as he read it. "This is interesting. I have reports from our contacts near Earth space. The humans are already moving. They are loading ships with supplies and medical equipment. They received the transmission only 6 hours ago." The council fell quiet again. 6 hours was no time at all in galactic terms. Most species would spend weeks just deciding whether to respond. But the humans were already taking action. "What do we know about human behavior?" asked Ambassador Velthos. Dax 1 scrolled through his files. "Our observers have noted some strange patterns. Humans often help their enemies. During their own wars, they have shared medical supplies with opposing forces. They rescue enemy soldiers during disasters. They even send aid to countries that have attacked them." "That sounds foolish," said Velthos. "The Kethmori think so too. I have recordings of their military leaders calling humans soft-hearted monsters and disgustingly weak. They think human compassion is a serious flaw." Rex Pala brought up tactical displays. "If the humans are sending aid, what kind of force can they mount? Their ships are not advanced. Their weapons are basic. That is what makes this strange," said Dax 1. They are not sending warships. The Earth fleet is made up of cargo vessels, medical ships, and environmental restoration equipment. They appear to be planning an actual rescue mission. The council members struggled to understand this. In galactic politics, aid usually came with conditions. Species helped each other to gain advantage or to settle debts, but the humans seem to be helping with no obvious benefit to themselves. We should monitor this situation, decided Ambassador Velthos. If the humans succeed, it could change how we think about the Kethmori crisis. If they fail, we will know that the situation is truly hopeless. As the council session ended, the transmission from the Kethmori homeworld continued to play. The warrior's voice echoed through the empty chamber. Please help us. We beg for pity. We will never forget those who answer our call in our darkest hour. But across the galaxy, only one species had actually answered. The humans of Earth were already crossing space toward a dying world. They carried supplies and medicine for people who had once called them weak. They were heading into danger to help former enemies. Most of the galaxy watched and waited to see what would happen. They could not understand why the humans would risk their lives for the Kethmori, but they were curious to see if these strange creatures from Earth could succeed where others feared to try. The Kethmori had begged for pity from the galaxy, but they were about to discover that humans offered something much more powerful than pity. They offered hope. Captain Elena Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the Earth ship times, Harmony times, and watched the stars bend around them as they traveled through slipspace. Behind her ship, 23 other vessels followed in formation. They carried everything Earth could spare: medical supplies, food, water purification systems, atmospheric processors, and rescue equipment. It had been only 18 hours since Earth received the Kethmori distress call. Most governments would still be arguing about whether to respond. But Earth's United Council had voted within 3 hours. The fleet launched 6 hours after that. Captain, we are getting reports from the advanced scouts, said Lieutenant Torres at the communications station. The Kethmori homeworld is worse than we expected. Elena nodded grimly. She had read the intelligence files. The Kethmori had once been proud warriors who conquered dozens of worlds. They had also been the ones who used human workers in their mining operations on Proxima Centauri. Her grandfather had died there, killed by Kethmori overseers who treated humans like disposable tools. But that history did not matter now. The reports showed children dying in underground shelters, elderly people abandoned in ruined cities, families separated by the endless storms. When Elena saw those images, she did not think about the Kethmori military. She thought about Earth's own refugees from the climate disasters of the 2080 seconds. Status report from all ships, Elena ordered. Medical ship times Florence Nightingale times reports ready. Dr. Chen has 300 medical staff prepared for emergency treatment, Torres announced. Engineering vessels times Tesla times and times Curie times are standing by with atmospheric restoration equipment, added Ensign Park from the engineering station. Food distribution ships are loaded with enough supplies for 2 million people for 6 months, Torres continued. Elena felt proud of her species. Earth was not the strongest military power in the galaxy. Their ships were slower than most. Their weapons were weaker, but when it came to helping others, no one moved faster than humans. The bridge speakers crackled with an incoming transmission. Human fleet. This is Commander Thexkar of the Kethmori Defense Force. State your intentions. Elena recognized the name. Thexkar was one of the Kethmori leaders who had called humans emotionally weak creatures in past diplomatic meetings. She activated the communication system. Commander Thexkar, this is Captain Rodriguez of the Earth Relief Fleet. We received your distress call. We are here to provide humanitarian aid and emergency assistance. There was a long pause. You are here to help us? That is correct. We have medical supplies, food, water purification systems, and rescue equipment. We also have teams trained in environmental restoration. Another pause. This is not possible. Your species is weak. You have no reason to help us. We have not been allies. Elena chose her words carefully. Commander, we know about past conflicts. But right now, your people are in danger. We believe all intelligent life has value. We are here to help, with no conditions attached. No conditions? Thexkar sounded confused. What do you want in return? Nothing. We want nothing in return except the chance to save lives. The communication channel went quiet for several minutes. Elena could hear other Kethmori voices arguing in the background. Finally, Thexkar spoke again. Human fleet, you may approach our homeworld. But know that many of my people do not trust your intentions. Some believe this is a trick to invade our weakened planet. We understand their concerns, Elena replied. Our ships carry medical and relief supplies only. You are welcome to scan our vessels to verify this. As the human fleet dropped out of slipspace near the Kethmori homeworld, Elena gasped at what she saw. The planet looked like it was dying. Massive storm systems covered 3/4 of the surface. Lightning flashed constantly. The oceans glowed with an evil red light from toxic algae blooms. Dear God, whispered Lieutenant Torres. How long has it been like this? Asked Dr. Sarah Chen, who had come to the bridge from the medical bay. According to the reports, the environmental collapse started 8 months ago, Elena answered. It has been getting worse every day. Dr. Chen studied the readings. The electromagnetic activity from those storms will disable most technology. Traditional evacuation methods will not work down there. Elena made a decision that would shock the galaxy. Then we go in without technology. Prepare the atmospheric suits. We are going down into those storms. Captain, that is extremely dangerous, protested Commander Williams, her second officer. The survival rates are better than 0, which is what the Kethmori have right now. Elena interrupted. We did not come this far to watch from orbit. Across the fleet, human crews prepared for the impossible. They loaded small shuttles with basic supplies and rescue equipment that could work in the electrical storms. Teams of volunteers stepped forward to pilot these craft into the most dangerous weather in known space. The Galactic Council monitored these preparations from their distant chambers. Ambassador Velthos watched the tactical displays with amazement. They are actually going into the storm zones, he said to his aide. No rational species would attempt this. Should we warn them of the dangers? The aide asked. I think they understand the dangers better than we do. They are simply choosing to act anyway. On the Kethmori homeworld, General Thexkar watched human shuttles descend through the atmospheric chaos. Each small craft contained teams of rescuers, heading for different cities. They flew directly into electrical storms that would destroy most ships. Sir, should we provide support? Asked his aide. With what? Our own ships cannot function in those storms. These humans are either very brave or very stupid. As the first human shuttles reached the surface, their crews immediately began setting up rescue operations. They moved through ruined cities, searching for survivors. When they found Kethmori families, they did not ask about their past. They did not check their political beliefs. They simply offered help. Dr. Chen established the first medical station in the eye of a massive hurricane. When injured Kethmori warriors were brought to her, they refused treatment. They demanded she help their enemies first, believing this was some kind of test. We treat the most seriously injured first, she explained calmly. It does not matter who they are, or what side they fought on. That is how we save the most lives. The Kethmori warriors stared at her with confusion. This was not how their society worked. In Kethmori culture, strength came first. Leaders were treated before followers. Allies were helped before enemies. But Dr. Chen and her team worked differently. They moved through the medical station, treating whoever needed help most urgently. They used supplies equally on all patients. They showed the same care to Kethmori children and adults, soldiers and civilians. Word of human actions spread quickly among the survivors. The stories seemed impossible. Humans were diving into deadly storms to rescue people who had mistreated them. They were sharing their food with former enemies. They were risking their lives for Kethmori children they had never met. Commander Thexkar received report after report of successful rescues. Human teams were pulling his people from collapsed buildings. They were providing clean water to contaminated areas. They were treating diseases and injuries with advanced medical techniques. "I do not understand," he said to his aide. "Why are they doing this? What do they gain?" His aide had no answer. The human actions made no sense in traditional galactic politics, but the results were undeniable. For the first time in months, Kethmori survival rates were improving. As the first day of operations ended, Elena received casualty reports. 3 human rescuers had died in collapsed buildings. 2 pilots had been lost when their shuttle was struck by lightning. But they had saved over 4,000 Kethmori lives. The galaxy watched these events with growing amazement and horror. The humans were not acting like any rational species. They were acting like something new and terrifying. Beings who valued all life equally, regardless of politics or past conflicts. Admiral Voss of the Centauri Federation summarized what everyone was thinking. "They are not acting like any species we know. They are acting like monsters. Monsters of compassion." The electromagnetic storm had been raging for 3 days straight. Lightning struck the ground every few seconds. The winds moved fast enough to tear apart buildings. Most species would have retreated to orbit and waited for the weather to calm. But Sergeant Mike Harrison was crawling through a collapsed school building, following the sound of crying children. "I hear you," he called out in the Kethmori language. He had learned it during his grandfather's stories about the mining colonies. "Stay where you are. We are coming to help." The building groaned as another lightning strike hit nearby. Chunks of concrete fell from the ceiling. Harrison's atmospheric suit registered dangerous radiation levels. His commanders on the ship were telling him to evacuate immediately. "Negative, Command," he said into his radio. "I have 7 children in here. Maybe more. I am not leaving without them." Behind him, his rescue team worked to clear debris. Corporal Lisa Wang used a plasma cutter to slice through twisted metal beams. Private Johnson operated the portable shields that protected them from falling rocks. "Got one," Wang called out. She pulled a small Kethmori child from under a collapsed desk. The little girl was hurt and scared, but alive. Wang immediately checked her injuries and started basic medical treatment. "Tell her she is safe now," Harrison said to their translator, a young Kethmori named Veltana who had volunteered to help the humans. Veltana spoke softly to the child in their native language. The girl looked up at Wang with large, frightened eyes. She had never seen a human before, but something about Wang's gentle manner made her stop crying. "She wants to know if you are here to hurt her," Veltana translated. "Tell her we are here to take her somewhere safe," Wang replied. "Tell her we have food and warm blankets waiting." This was the 20th rescue Harrison's team had performed in 3 days. Each time, they found Kethmori who could not believe humans were risking their lives to help. The children were especially confused. They had been taught that humans were weak and selfish, but here was Corporal Wang, sharing her own food rations with injured Kethmori. Here was Private Johnson, using his body to shield alien children from falling debris. Here was Sergeant Harrison, refusing direct orders to retreat because he would not abandon anyone in need. On the surface, Dr. Sarah Chen had established 3 medical stations in impossible locations. One was in the eye of a hurricane. Another was built inside the ruins of a government building. The third was underground in the subway tunnels, protected from the electrical storms above. Each station treated hundreds of patients every day. Dr. Chen had not slept more than 2 hours at a time since arriving. Her medical team worked around the clock, treating everything from radiation poisoning to broken bones to malnutrition. "Doctor, we have incoming casualties," called Nurse Patel from the emergency entrance. "Severe electrical burns on a family of 5. Dr. Chen did not ask if the family was military or civilian. She did not check their political beliefs or past actions. She simply moved to the treatment area and began working to save their lives. The injured family was brought in by a group of Kethmori soldiers. The soldiers expected Dr. Chen to treat them first, since they were warriors. In Kethmori society, fighters always received priority. But Dr. Chen looked at the worst injury, which belonged to a small child. She immediately began working on the little boy, while her team treated the others. "Why do you help the weak one first?" asked the soldier leader. "Because he needs help the most," Dr. Chen replied without looking up from her work. "In human medicine, we have a rule called triage. We help whoever is most likely to die if we wait, but he is just a child. We are warriors. Children are more important than warriors," Dr. Chen said firmly. "Children are the future. Warriors exist to protect children, not the other way around." The Kethmori soldiers stared at her in shock. No one had ever told them that their lives were less important than a child's. They had been raised to believe that strength made them valuable, but as they watched Dr. Chen work, they saw something they had never experienced before. She treated the child with incredible skill and care. She spoke gently to calm his fear. She used expensive human medicine to heal his burns. When the child was stable, Dr. Chen turned to the soldiers. "Now let me see your injuries." "You have already used your best medicine on the child," one soldier protested. "What is left for us?" "We have plenty of medicine," Dr. Chen smiled. "On Earth, we believe in treating everyone equally. You will receive the same care as any patient." This was true. The Human Relief Fleet had brought enough medical supplies to treat millions of people. Earth's government had emptied their strategic reserves and borrowed from allied worlds to gather these resources. Meanwhile, the human engineering teams were attempting something the galaxy considered impossible. They were trying to stop the environmental collapse using techniques that worked with the existing ecosystem rather than replacing it. Commander Janet Torres led the atmospheric engineering project. Her team had placed hundreds of processors around the planet. Instead of forcing the atmosphere to change, they were helping it heal naturally. "The toxic algae blooms are responding to treatment," she reported to Captain Rodriguez. "We have reduced toxin levels by 30% in the Northern Ocean." "What about the storm systems?" "That is more complex. The electromagnetic disturbances are caused by mineral deposits that have been exposed by strip mining. We cannot fix that quickly. But we can redirect the energy safely." Torres's plan was ambitious. Instead of trying to stop the electrical storms, the humans were building a network of lightning rods and power collectors. They would turn the destructive energy into electricity that could power the reconstruction efforts. "This approach is completely unknown to us," admitted Kethmori engineer Dex Pole, who was working with the human team. "We would have tried to suppress the storms by force. Force does not always work," Torres explained. "Sometimes you have to work with natural systems instead of against them." The Galactic Council watched these efforts with growing amazement. Fleet Admiral Korvax of the Hegemony called an emergency session. "These humans are exhibiting impossible behavior," he announced to the assembly. "They are operating in conditions that would kill most of our people. They are using their own resources to help former enemies. They are showing no concern for their own safety." "Is this normal for their species?" asked Counselor Dax 1. "Our behavioral experts say yes," Korvax replied. "Humans have a documented history of helping others, even when it costs them greatly. They send aid to enemies during wartime. They share resources with competing nations. They rescue people who have attacked them." Ambassador Velthos studied the tactical reports. "Their casualty rates are significant. They have lost 43 personnel in 3 days, yet they continue operations." "Why?" asked the Andromedan delegate. "What do they gain from this?" "Nothing," Korvax answered. "According to our analysis, Earth gains no strategic advantage from helping the Kethmori. If anything, they are weakening themselves by using so many resources." The Council fell silent as they absorbed this information. In galactic politics, every action had a purpose. Species helped each other to gain allies, resources, or territory, but the humans seemed to be helping simply because they could. "There is something else," Korvax continued. "The Kethmori are beginning to change their behavior. Reports show them helping with rescue operations. They are sharing food with weaker members of their society. They are copying human medical techniques." This was the most shocking news of all. The Kethmori had been a warrior culture for thousands of years. They believed that strength was the only virtue, but exposure to human compassion was making them question their entire way of life. On the planet's surface, young Veltana watched Sergeant Harrison pull another survivor from the rubble. This was the 30th person Harrison had rescued personally. He was exhausted and injured. But he refused to rest while people were still trapped. "Why does he do this?" she asked Corporal Wang. "Because that is who we are," Wang replied. "Humans believe that every life has value. We do not abandon people in need, even enemies, especially enemies. It is easy to help friends. It takes real strength to help people who have hurt you." Veltana thought about this as she watched the human rescue team's work. These people had every reason to hate the Kethmori. Her people had used human workers as slaves. They had mocked human compassion as weakness, but here were the humans, risking everything to save Kethmori children. They were using their best medicine on Kethmori patients. They were teaching Kethmori engineers how to heal their planet. For the first time in her life, Veltana wondered if strength and compassion might be the same thing. As the fourth day of operations began, Captain Rodriguez received a message from the Galactic Council. They wanted to know how much longer the human mission would continue. Her reply was simple: until everyone is safe. The galaxy was learning that humans did not measure success in profit or victory. They measured it in lives saved and suffering ended. To them, the mission was not complete until every Kethmori who could be saved had been rescued. This approach terrified the established galactic powers. The humans were not acting like conquerors or politicians. They were acting like something far more dangerous. Beings who actually meant what they said about helping others. Lieutenant Commander James Wright stared at the empty bunks in the crew quarters. 5 beds that would never be occupied again. Martinez, Chen, O'Brien, Kumar, and Jackson. All dead in yesterday's rescue operation when a building collapsed during an electromagnetic storm. They had been trying to save a Kethmori nursery. They succeeded. 43 children were now safe in the human medical stations. But it cost 5 human lives to do it. "Sir?" Ensign Park entered the quarters. "Captain Rodriguez wants to see you on the bridge." James followed Park through the ship's corridors. Everywhere he looked, he saw tired faces. The crew had been working non-stop for 6 days. They had saved thousands of Kethmori lives, but the cost was growing higher each day. On the bridge, Captain Rodriguez was studying casualty reports. Her uniform was wrinkled from sleeping in her chair. Her eyes showed the strain of command. "James, we need to talk," she said without looking up. "If it's about my recommendation to withdraw some teams, I stand by it," James replied. "We're losing too many people. I know how you feel." "Do you?" James interrupted. Martinez had 2 kids back on Earth. Chen was supposed to get married next month. They died saving alien children who will probably grow up to hate us anyway. Rodriguez finally looked at him. "Is that what you really think?" James sat down heavily in a chair. "Captain, I've read the reports. The Kethmori used human workers as slave labor. They called us weak and pathetic. My grandfather worked in their mines. He told stories about how they treated our people. I know. My grandfather died in those same mines." James was surprised. He had not known about the captain's family history. "Then why are we doing this? Why are we dying for them?" Rodriguez moved to the window that showed the damaged planet below. "Do you see those storms, James?" "Yes, ma'am. 50 years ago, Earth had storms like that. Climate change nearly destroyed our civilization. Do you know who helped us?" James shook his head. "Everyone," Rodriguez said. "The Centauri Federation sent atmospheric processors. The Andromedan League provided emergency food. Even species we had fought against in trade wars sent aid. They did not ask if we deserved help. They just helped. That was different. Was it?" Rodriguez turned to face him. Earth had spent decades polluting our environment. We had fought wars over resources. We had made many mistakes. But when we needed help, the galaxy did not abandon us. James thought about this, but his anger remained. The Kethmori would never have done the same for us. "You are probably right," Rodriguez agreed. "But that is exactly why we have to do it, James. We are not them. We are the species that defines itself by whom we save, not whom we destroy." Before James could respond, the communications officer called out, "Captain, we are receiving an urgent transmission from the surface. It's from the Keth-Mori Command Center." The main screen showed Commander Thexkar. The Keth-Mori leader looked angry and desperate. "Human ship, I demand that you remove your people from our planet immediately." Rodriguez stepped forward. "Commander, is there a problem with our rescue operations?" "The problem is that you are making my people weak," Thexkar snarled. "They are starting to believe that your way is better. They question our traditions. They want to copy your methods. Is that bad?" "Yes, we are warriors. We survive through strength, not through begging for help from others." Rodriguez chose her words carefully. "Commander, your people are alive today because of cooperation between our species. Is that not a kind of strength?" "It is humiliation," Thexkar shouted. "Better to die with honor than live in shame." The transmission ended abruptly. Rodriguez turned to her crew. "All teams on alert. Something is about to happen. On the planet's surface, Dr. Chen was treating patients in her underground medical station when the attack began. Keth-Mori soldiers loyal to Thexkar surrounded the building and demanded that all humans surrender. "We will not surrender," Dr. Chen told their leader through the translator. "We have patients who need care. The patients will be cared for by Keth-Mori medics," the soldier replied. "With what supplies? Your medical systems were destroyed in the storms." The soldier hesitated. It was true that the Keth-Mori had lost most of their medical capabilities. Their people would die without human treatment. Inside the medical station, tensions rose. Some of the Keth-Mori patients had heard about the confrontation. They faced a terrible choice: support their own military, or protect the humans who had saved their lives. Young Veltana made the choice for all of them. She stood up from her hospital bed, still weak from radiation treatment, and walked to the entrance. "You will not harm these humans," she told the soldiers. "Stand aside, child. This does not concern you." "It does concern me. These people saved my life. They saved my sister's life. They have saved hundreds of our children. I will not let you hurt them." More patients joined her. Adults who could barely walk placed themselves between the soldiers and the medical staff. Children who had been rescued from collapsed buildings held hands to block the corridors. "Move away," the soldier leader commanded. "We are following orders." "Then you will have to go through us first," said an elderly Keth-Mori male who had lost his arm in the storms. "These humans came here when we had nothing. They shared their food with us. They used their medicine on us. They are more honorable than any warrior I have known." The soldiers found themselves facing their own people. Keth-Mori civilians were protecting human rescuers. It was a situation none of them had prepared for. Meanwhile, Thexkar himself was leading an assault on the main human base. He commanded a small force of loyal troops who still believed in the old ways. They approached the human command center with weapons ready, but they found the base defended by an unexpected force. Keth-Mori civilians and soldiers who had chosen to side with the humans. Engineer Dexpol stood at the front of this group. "General, you cannot pass." "Dexpol, you were one of my best officers. Why do you betray your own species?" "I am not betraying our species. I am trying to save it." Dexpol gestured to the human ships above. "These beings came across space to help us. They ask for nothing in return. They share everything they have. If this is weakness, then I want to be weak." "You disgust me," Thexkar spat. "All of you. You have forgotten what it means to be Keth-Mori." "No, General. We have learned what it means to be something better." The confrontation reached its breaking point when Thexkar ordered his troops to fire on the human base. But his soldiers hesitated. They had seen human medics treating their wounded comrades. They had watched human rescuers risk their lives for Keth-Mori children. One by one, Thexkar's soldiers lowered their weapons. "I will not fire on beings who saved my daughter," said one. "These humans pulled my family from a collapsed building," said another. "They shared their food when we had nothing," added a third. Thexkar found himself alone, surrounded by his own people who refused to fight the humans. His loyal soldiers had been converted by simple acts of kindness. Captain Rodriguez received reports of these events from her observation teams. The Kethmori were experiencing a civil war of philosophy. Half wanted to return to their old warrior ways. The other half wanted to learn from human examples of cooperation and compassion. "It's tearing their society apart," reported Commander Williams. "No," Rodriguez corrected. "It's giving them a chance to choose who they want to become." The crisis reached its peak when a massive electromagnetic storm threatened the area where both the human base and the main Kethmori refugee center were located. The storm was too powerful for evacuation. Everyone would have to ride it out together. In the underground shelters, humans and Kethmori huddled together, waiting for the storm to pass. They shared food, water, and warmth. Human children played with Kethmori children. Adults told stories to keep spirits up. Dr. Chen found herself treating General Thexkar, who had been injured when debris fell on him during the storm. As she worked on his wounds, he spoke quietly. "I do not understand your people," he said. "What don't you understand? I tried to have you killed today. Yet you are saving my life." Dr. Chen continued her work without stopping. "On Earth, we have a saying. Heal the person, not the politics. You are injured. I am a doctor. Everything else is less important than that." Thexkar was silent for a long time. Finally, he asked, "How do you forgive enemies so easily?" "It is not easy," Dr. Chen replied. "But it is necessary. Hatred only creates more hatred. Kindness can break the cycle." As the storm raged above them, something fundamental changed in the underground shelter. Humans and Kethmori, who had been enemies hours before, were now working together to survive. They were sharing resources, protecting each other's children, and discovering that they were not so different after all. When the storm finally ended, Thexkar emerged from the shelter a changed being. He looked at the damage around them and saw human and Kethmori rescue teams already working together to clear debris. He approached Captain Rodriguez, who was coordinating the relief efforts. "Captain," he said formally, "I owe you an apology. And more than that, I owe you a debt that cannot be repaid." "You owe us nothing, General. You are wrong. You have shown my people something we had forgotten. You have reminded us that true strength comes from protecting others, not from conquering them." Rodriguez nodded. "What will you do now?" Thexkar looked at his people working alongside humans. "I will learn. We all will learn. Perhaps it is time for the Kethmori to try a different path." As the day ended, James Wright stood on the bridge watching the joint human-Kethmori rescue operations. He thought about the friends he had lost, and the enemies who had become allies. "Still think we made the wrong choice?" asked Captain Rodriguez. James watched a Kethmori child hand a flower to a human medic. "I think I'm beginning to understand why we're called monsters, Captain." "Oh? Because what we do is so alien to everyone else that it frightens them. We're monsters of compassion in a galaxy that understands only strength and profit." Rodriguez smiled. "And that is exactly what makes us human." 6 months had passed since the first human ships arrived at the dying Kethmori homeworld. The electromagnetic storms were gone. The toxic seas were clear. Green plants grew in the rebuilt cities where children played in parks that had once been ruins. But the most remarkable change was not in the landscape. It was in the people. Captain Elena Rodriguez walked through the streets of New Kethara, the capital city that had been rebuilt with both human and Kethmori technology. She saw something that would have been impossible a year ago. Human and Kethmori children playing together. Their parents working side by side in restoration projects. "Captain Rodriguez," a young voice called out in accented English. She turned to see Veltana running toward her. The young Kethmori had learned human languages and was now working as a translator and cultural liaison. "Veltana, good to see you," Elena smiled. "How are your studies going?" "Very well. I have been reading about Earth's environmental restoration projects. I want to help other planets the way you helped ours." This was not unusual. Many young Kethmori were studying human methods of cooperation, environmental science, and humanitarian aid. They wanted to learn how to help others instead of conquering them. Elena's personal communicator chimed with an urgent message from Earth Command. She read it quickly, then looked up at Veltana with concern. "What is wrong?" the young alien asked. "We just received a distress call from the vegan colonies. They are facing environmental collapse, massive volcanic activity triggered by mining accidents." Veltana's expression became serious. "What will Earth do?" "The usual. We are preparing relief ships. But it is a large disaster. We could use help." Before Elena could say more, another voice interrupted them. "You have help. You have help." They turned to see General Thexkar approaching. The former warrior leader looked very different now. Instead of battle armor, he wore the practical clothing of a relief worker. Instead of weapons, he carried emergency medical supplies. "General, what do you mean?" Elena asked. "The Keth Mori Assembly has voted. We want to join your relief mission to the vegan colonies. We have ships, supplies, and people ready to help." Elena was surprised. "You want to help the vegans?" "Yes, they need aid. We can provide it." "Is that not what civilized beings do?" This conversation marked a historic moment. The Keth Mori, who had once been the galaxy's most feared conquerors, were volunteering for their first humanitarian mission. 2 weeks later, a joint human Keth Mori relief fleet approached the vegan system. The fleet was massive. 30 human ships carrying medical supplies and environmental restoration equipment, and 20 Keth Mori vessels loaded with food, water purifiers, and construction materials. Commander Thexkar stood on the bridge of his flagship, wearing human-designed environmental armor. Beside him, Captain Rodriguez coordinated the relief operations. "Vegan Control, this is the Joint Relief Fleet," Elena broadcast. "We are here to provide humanitarian assistance." The response came back filled with confusion and fear. "Relief Fleet? We sent no request for aid. We can handle our own problems." "We know you did not request help," Elena replied patiently. "But we received reports of volcanic activity threatening your colonies. We are here to help evacuate civilians and restore damaged areas. We do not need your charity." Thexkar requested permission to speak. Elena nodded and handed him the communicator. "Vegan Control, this is General Thexkar of the Keth Mori Defense Force. 6 months ago, my world was dying. My people were too proud to ask for help. These humans came anyway. They saved millions of lives and asked for nothing in return. Now we want to pass that gift forward." There was a long silence from Vegan Control. Finally, a different voice came through the speakers. "This is Colonial Administrator Vex Hun. We have 3 million people in danger zones. Our evacuation ships were destroyed in the volcanic eruptions. We can evacuate 3 million people," Thexkar replied. "We have done it before." The rescue operation that followed amazed the galaxy. Human and Keth Mori teams worked together with perfect coordination. They had learned each other's strengths and methods during the reconstruction of the Keth Mori homeworld. Dr. Chen, now promoted to Chief Medical Officer for Humanitarian Operations, established medical stations on 3 vegan worlds. She worked alongside Keth Mori medics, who had learned human techniques for treating disaster victims. "Doctor, we have incoming casualties from the northern continent," reported a Keth Mori nurse named Dex Aznala. She had been one of Thexkar's former soldiers, now retrained as a medical assistant. "What are we looking at?" Dr. Chen asked. "Volcanic ash inhalation, mostly. Some burns and crush injuries from collapsed buildings. Set up triage station 3. Use the human respiratory treatment protocols, combined with Keth Mori pain management techniques." This combination of human and Keth Mori medical knowledge was proving incredibly effective. The two species had different strengths that complemented each other perfectly. Meanwhile, the engineering teams were attempting something even more ambitious. The volcanic eruptions could not be stopped, but they could be redirected away from populated areas. Human engineer Commander Torres worked with Keth Mori technician Vorthok to design a network of pressure release channels. The idea was to give the volcanic pressure safe places to escape before it built up enough to cause explosions. "The human approach is more gentle," Vorthok observed. "You work with natural forces instead of fighting them. The Keth Mori approach is more direct." Torres replied. You get things done quickly when speed matters. We need both approaches for this project. The Galactic Council monitored these operations with a mixture of awe and concern. The humans had not only saved their enemies, they had converted them into allies who were now helping save other worlds. This is unprecedented, Admiral Korvax reported to the emergency session. The Human Keth-Mori Alliance is revolutionizing how humanitarian aid is conducted. Their combined capabilities exceed anything we have seen before. Are they becoming a threat to galactic stability? Asked Ambassador Velthos. That depends on how you define threat, Korvax replied. They are not building weapons or conquering territory, but they are changing how entire species think about cooperation and mutual aid. The truth was that the human example was spreading beyond the Keth-Mori. Other species were beginning to question their own approaches to international relations. Some were starting to offer aid to former enemies. Others were developing new policies based on humanitarian concerns rather than just profit. On the vegan homeworld, the crisis reached its peak when a supervolcano threatened to destroy the planetary capital. The evacuation would require moving 8 million people in less than 48 hours. It cannot be done, the vegan leadership insisted. We do not have enough ships. Yes, we do, Thexkar replied firmly. We have human ships, Keth-Mori ships, and your remaining vessels. But more importantly, we have something else. What? We have learned to work together. The evacuation that followed broke every record in galactic history. Human logistics coordinators organized the transport schedules. Keth-Mori security teams maintained order during the boarding process. Vegan pilots who knew the local terrain guided ships through dangerous airspace. But the most remarkable part was not the technical achievement. It was watching former enemies work together to save strangers. Keth-Mori soldiers carried vegan children to safety. Human medics treated vegan refugees with the same care they had shown Keth-Mori patients. Vegan technicians shared their knowledge of local conditions to help the relief workers. When the supervolcano finally erupted, all 8 million civilians were safely off-planet. The destruction was massive, but no lives were lost. As the fleet returned to space, a vegan child approached General Thexkar. Through a translator, she said, "Thank you for saving my family. Why did you help us?" "We are not your people." Thexkar knelt down to the child's level. "A very wise human taught me something. She said that all people become your people when they need help." Captain Rodriguez watched this exchange with pride. The Keth-Mori had not just learned to accept help, they had learned to give it freely. 3 months later, Elena stood before the Galactic Council to receive the Order of Stellar Peace. But she was not alone. General Thexkar stood beside her, also receiving the honor for his people's transformation from conquerors to protectors. "The galaxy owes both your species a debt," announced Counselor Dax I. "You have shown us a new model for international cooperation." "We have shown you nothing new," Elena replied. "We have simply reminded everyone that compassion is stronger than conquest." Thexkar nodded agreement. "The humans did not defeat us in battle. They defeated our hatred with kindness. They are monsters of mercy in a galaxy that had forgotten what mercy looked like." After the ceremony, Elena and Thexkar walked together through the council gardens. They had become unlikely friends, united by their shared experiences of disaster and recovery. "I still do not understand how your people do it," Thexkar said. "How do you forgive so easily? How do you help people who have hurt you?" Elena thought about her grandfather, who had died in Keth-Mori mines. She thought about the human rescuers who had died saving Keth-Mori children. She thought about the choice every human made to help others despite the cost. "We do not forgive because it is easy," she said finally. "We forgive because it is necessary. We help because that is who we choose to be. And now that is who we choose to be as well." Elena smiled. The galaxy will never be the same. She was right. The Human Keth-Mori Alliance had started something that could not be stopped. Other species were forming their own humanitarian partnerships. The definition of strength was changing from the ability to conquer to the ability to save. Years later, when historians studied this period, they would call it the Great Transformation. But those who lived through it had a simpler name for what happened when the Keth Mori begged for pity and the earth monsters reacted. They called it hope. In the end, the most terrifying thing about humans was not their weapons or their technology. It was their refusal to let others suffer when they could help. It was their insistence that former enemies could become family. It was their absolute conviction that every life had value, regardless of species or past actions. The galaxy had begged for pity, expecting either cruelty or indifference. Instead, they received something far more powerful and transformative. Unconditional love from the monsters of Earth who refused to let anyone face their darkest hour alone. And in learning to accept that love, entire civilizations learned to love in return.